send, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
Yes.
what I wanted to.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just did it.
Okay, and my
Please
wife,
do.
Paula, is here, and
Hi,
Karen
Miss
is here,
Paula.
and our border collie Angel is right
Hi, Angel.
Hey, tell your wife I said thank you for all of her help with getting this conversation set up. That was so nice of her.
Yeah, okay, I will relay that. Thank you. And it's Kevin and Steph, right?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
You guys are
Yes.
so good looking. Wow.
Oh,
Dude, I like him.
What have you won some kind of awards for,
Oh,
where you
I
look?
certainly haven't, but that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. Okay, so real quick.
wait, I want to know. Do we call you Captain, Mr. Black? How do we address you properly?
Dale, Dale. Yeah.
Dale.
I would, yeah. I'd have to call him Captain.
It's kind of cool to
I'd
call you
be-
Captain.
I'd be telling everybody I come in. I'm sorry, it's Captain.
It's Captain.
No, it's not.
We
It's not
need to be
Mr. Black. It's
addressed.
Captain.
Well, I'm used to that name, and I'm used to the salutes at work. So it when I was in the airline industry, I really excelled at it and did a lot of work and tried to raise to the highest level and standard. I really wanted to please God to improve aviation safety and raise the bar. And by raising the bar, you prevent airplane crashes, you
Right.
save lives. And but that was back in my day. It's a very different airline industry today, and I'm glad that I lived in the golden era, right after World War II. And oh my gosh, airlines were trying to compete with each other, and everything, the uniforms, everything was improving. It was really a exciting time to be in the field of aviation.
Oh, I bet it
I
was.
bet it was.
Okay, so real quick, logistically,
Legally.
legally, I got to ask you this: do you approve us recording this conversation with you?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I like him.
Okay, so Captain, if you see Steph or I raise our hand, just finish your thought. We have a follow-up question to something you just said. All right, and we don't want to cut you off or talk over you. So if you see us raise our hand, just finish your thought. This is not live. We pre-record all of our interviews. You are episode 168, which will drop on May 5th, Captain Dale. And yeah, and then on a radio show 10 days later. So we will send you, or Paula, or whomever, we send all of our guests a draft ahead of time. So if they want to listen to it, they can, to ensure that nothing was taken out of context. All right. So if you say you hate little kids or something, we'll edit that out. Okay. So don't worry. All right.
I love your little kids. I saw a picture of them on your.
Did
webpage.
you?
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're the sweetest.
precious children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then
Raise your hand.
yeah, we just said raise your hand. And then at the
did it?
end, I did.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you talk about when we raised our
I did
hands?
say that.
Are you
A
sure?
little bit, yeah. I didn't quite understand it. In other words, if I didn't finish a thought, I'm just to raise my hand. And
No. If you see Steph or I raise our hand, finish your thought, because we have a question to something you just said.
Got it.
And
Okay.
we don't want to cut you off or talk over you.
Perfect.
So we'll just do that. And then at the end, Captain, we'll say 2 goodbyes to you. One to you, recording, and then a second one to you personally, like this. So I think that's it.
It is, but can I say one thing?
Please.
Captain, can I tell you how special this is? So a few weeks ago, I knew that was bothering me. Thank you. A few weeks ago, I was in my van and we were talking about who to have on for guests. And I just started praying in my car, like, God, who do you want for us to reach out to for Tell Us a Good Story? And I was praying and I wasn't feeling anything. So I started reading in my book, and all of a sudden the Holy Spirit spoke and it said, plane crash, lone survivor, went to heaven. That's all I got. So I typed it in and your name popped up. And that's how we reached out to you. Isn't that amazing? Like, I just wanted to share that with you because I thought that was so special.
That is phenomenal. And God does work that way. But that, I think, is the first time I've ever heard anyone pray to God, what should I do? Who should I have? And that as a result, God spoke to you. Wonderful. And I'm so glad to be here. I'm happy
Thank you.
to be with
Thank
you. We're in Idaho, and I'm from Southern California. That's where I was raised in Hollywood, Burbank airport is where the crash occurred. And then I grew up very much so in Orange County, which is right next to Disneyland, in fact, Disney
Uh-huh.
Yes.
back in the day. And anyway, but now we live up here, semi-retiring. We'll never retire, that's for sure. There's too much to
Expire.
do.
Yes, you'll expire. You're one of those people.
Right, there you go. Yeah, but we're slowing it down a little.
That's
Mhm.
good. Okay, hang tight 1 second here, Captain Dale. So this producer Craig, this is episode 168 with Captain Dale Black. Hang tight here. Steph,
I love him already. I do. I love him already.
this is going to be such a great conversation.
I'm
very
super excited.
very
about
honored
this.
that we have the opportunity to speak to this next guest. Well, friends, our next guest is a former airline pilot instructor and commercial pilot who has flown all over the world. As a young pilot in training, his plane struck a 75-foot tall
No, say
build.
that-
Let me say it again.
Yeah, say it again.
75-foot tall building at 135 miles an hour and disintegrated. He was the only survivor. And his experience after that, crashed changed his life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to tell us a good story, Captain Dale Brown.
Captain.
Let me say it again.
Wait.
I jacked up. Man, that's 3 in a row. I'm so
Yes.
sorry. Say it
That's
again.
okay, Kevin. You're a professional, and
I'm
we're
so sorry.
we're
Doesn't look
all
like it now.
allowed to make little mistakes, so no problem. You can call me anything you want.
Aw.
with me.
Captain Dale Black.
Captain. So excited.
So first off, thank you for saying yes to us, Captain Dale. We greatly appreciate it. This is a big honor for us.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you too, and to share this story that God gave me is my privilege. And I've done. We don't take any royalties from the book Flight to Heaven. Never have, and we're just trying to give our love back to people and to God's children. And I was given a second chance to live.
Yes. And this happened over 50 years ago, right? Which is amazing. And even to this day, so you were 19
Yeah.
when this experience happened. And even to this day, I'm blown away how it would still be very difficult, very challenging to talk about. And
It is.
again, we're honored that you would do this, right? Because from what I've read, you kept this a secret for almost 40 years, right? Almost 4 decades. You didn't share the story. Is that right?
That's correct. I told God at the time that if you wanted me to talk about it, I will, but I'd rather not. And I mentioned it to my grandfather, who was a very wise man at the time, and he suggested that I keep my story to myself, and instead live your experience, let it come out in what you do, what you say, and how you live your life. And so I tried to do that, and I think I succeeded in many ways. I failed on other ways. I'm still human, of course, but praise the Lord. About 38 years later, my wife told me, for the last time, she'd been pounding on me, pounding on my heart, asking me to tell something that had obviously been a secret. I knew that she knew something, and I was never released to tell the story. And one night, after 38 years of marriage, and finally, I started feeling okay to tell her the story. And I said, I'll tell you more, but only if you make me a deal. And that is, if you're going to write this down, I can see you're writing, this stays between our children, our grandkids, and it doesn't go elsewhere. And then I told her the whole story. She wrote it down. One thing led to another. I got my arms twisted, in a sense, and felt the Lord saying, Dale, tell the story, let the story out. And so we didn't take royalties of the book. There's been no monetary gain from this story, but many lives have been changed, and I'm glad for that. To God be the glory. We crashed not into just a building, but into the strangest, most ironic building in the country for sure. And it made it the most ironic airplane crash in American history of aviation. And that is we crashed into a cemetery's mausoleum. It's actually 100
Really?
feet tall. Yeah, and we slammed into this building erected in memory of deceased pilots. And it's called Portal of the Folded Wings in a
Okay.
cemetery. We impacted right 5 feet from the top of this dome. And inside of that dome is Amelia Earhart, the Wright brothers mechanic, General Billy Mitchell, and many others that aviation people would understand. But 50 years later, after that crash, they made a big, giant plaque in my honor with my name and all my background, and they inserted it right above Amelia Earhart. So
Really?
my whole life in aviation is memorialized in a plaque, and it's inside of that dome. By the way, it was last Monday they installed it, so it's been a long
Oh,
time. Yeah,
That's
you're one of the
incredible.
first people to know about it.
I feel honored.
That's amazing. See, I didn't know you kept this story from your family as well. I thought you just kept it private, right? To just close to you, right? I didn't realize you had kept it a secret from your family. That's incredible.
I told God, I said, God, I'll tell this story, but only when you make it crystal clear. Because I didn't want to tell the story. I like mathematics. I like engineering. I like business. Things that are solid and provable, and I like science. And this was just the opposite of that, And I just didn't want to go into this realm of discussion that this happened to me, but it did, and it changed every day of my everyday life for my ever since July 18th, 1969. It's still changing me, and I'm just a testimony that God is real, heaven is real, and we have choices to make here on this earth. And those choices, they're permanent in a lot of ways. And there's so many advantages in getting closer to the real one, true God. And he gives purpose and joy and life and healing. And oh my gosh, there's just so many benefits. And the biggest tragedy on the earth, I think, is that people don't know who God is. They think they do, but they don't. They don't understand who Jesus is. They're misunderstanding most of the time. And oh my goodness, if we ever truly got a glimpse of who Jesus is and how real heaven is, who in their right mind would reject it?
Yes.
So true.
Yes.
So, Captain, can you take us back 40 years ago and what happened on that, day that you'll always remember for the rest of your life?
Now 50 years ago.
50 years. Oh, that's right. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Take us back to what happened 50 years ago.
Yeah, good math, Kevin. Good job.
He is a CPA, so that's good.
Oh, no wonder. That all should make sense. Yeah, it was a good over 50 years ago, and I got to the airport really early. I left my house at 4:30, arrived at the airplane at 5:30 a.m. It was a beautiful day, no clouds, no wind, no weather to speak of. We were flying a wonderfully beautiful semi-new airplane, a Piper Navajo, 10 passengers, 10 seats inside, but the seats had been removed for cargo. We were carrying cargo. I got there, did everything I was supposed to do normally, pre-flighted, loaded the cargo, secured the cargo. Chuck, my flight instructor, my mentor, my friend, showed up, asked me if I'd done all that. And I said, yes. Another guy got there named Gene. We shook hands. I'd never known him before. I'd never met him before. Gene sat in the left seat. I sat in the right seat, expecting to serve as co-pilot as normal. Chuck, the actual pilot in command, sat in the temporary third seat, which was right in between us. His legs were touching our hips, so to speak. And we taxied out. Everything was good. we were just getting ready to take off, and I got tapped on the shoulder, and Chuck went like this. Now, the radio people won't be able to see this, but he went like this with his fingers, saying, flip seats with me, Dale. He didn't say a word, but he did this, moving his fingers. So I got out of the seat. He got in, strapped himself in. We were cleared for takeoff, rolling down the runway. Again, everything is normal as can be. Wasn't worried about a thing. We accelerated 80 knots, 90 knots, and then we started rotating. In other words, pitching the nose up, but the main gear, the main wheels are still on the runway. And we were then accelerating still. We climbed above the runway, gear coming up, flaps were already up. Again, everything seemed pretty normal. And then suddenly, boom, something sounded strange. I couldn't put my finger on it. Within 2 seconds, Chuck is yelling in the cockpit, which is not through the radio, but he's yelling, let's land in that clear area over there. And I sort of leaned up and I saw that above, in front of us was a large green, grassy, what looked like a park, a city park right next to the Hollywood Burbank Airport, where all the movie stars had their airplanes.
Yeah.
The time, and then within a matter of about 3 seconds, I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to be in the headlines of tomorrow's newspaper. Isn't that a funny thing? That's what I thought. And with that thought, I could see Chuck's both hands grab the flight controls, grab them so tight, yank them all the way left, pulling them all the way back into his chest. My eyes went and looked at his hands, which were turning white because he was squeezing so tightly. Well, the next thing I knew, I am looking down at 3 pilot bodies. I'm hovering above the ground. And I don't know why I'm seeing this. I'm not sure what in the world. I don't remember a crash. I don't remember I was a pilot. I don't remember what day it was. I just know that I'm looking down and I see this pilot, and he was completely dead. I don't need to say more than that, but he was a goner for sure. And then I looked at another pilot, and that's Chuck. That's my flight instructor. That's my mentor. And he looked dead. And then the third body, I looked down and, oh my gosh, that's me.
Mm.
That's me. How could that be? Now, wait a minute. I'm up here, and that's me down there. Suddenly, instantly, at the lightning speed, I realized suddenly that, okay, I am a spirit.
Mm.
That's why I can see down there. I'm alive. I'm a spirit being made in God's image. And I have a soul, a mind, a will, an emotion. Okay, those are the things that are eternal. How did I never learned this, but I knew it at the moment, at that moment. And then I looked down and I see the body and I thought, oh, that poor young man. Well, it was me. Okay, that poor young me. But I was just barely worried that I had died so young. I was feeling no pain. I wasn't feeling really a lot of bad things. I was just thinking, darn, I died so young, but I am completely alive and well. But I mean, I thought I was, but my body
Right.
was clearly dead. And so that was the experience of my memory. I saw 3 bodies and didn't know how I got there. For a few moments, I was completely disoriented. I didn't know that I was a pilot. I didn't know that I was in a crash. And then so I'm kind of making it a little confusing, because within a matter of 30 seconds, it all came back. Oh, of course I'm a pilot. There's Chuck, there's me. We were taking off a half of a mile away. Here we are, we must have crashed. And then by that time, The paramedics have arrived. The fire department was there. By the way, may I say something? We were an aircraft full of fuel. And, I spent my entire career later studying airplane crashes. I went to every airplane crash almost that occurred in California, anywhere in California, Arizona, New Mexico. I went to the major ones all across the country. I studied airplane crashes, brought the information back, and used that information to help train pilots to not allow that to ever happen again. Now, that took sometimes 2 years to finish compiling the data for what caused an actual aircraft accident. But anyway, with all of that information, it's kind of funny and strange that our aircraft and our area was completely drenched in fuel. We did not have an engine failure. We had nothing mechanically wrong. 2 very hot engines at full RPM, drenched in fuel, and there was no fire. And that's just a little bit of a miracle, I might add.
No fire.
What?
No fire.
No
So,
fire.
so when the paramedics and everyone come, you're still kind of out of body, your spirit, you're seeing all this, you're watching all this happen, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm watching it happen. There was a third paramedic. He came to me and I watched him work on me. And of course, I was clearly dead. I'd been pressed up against the instrument panel, and all 3 of the pilots, all 3 of us were sitting very close to each other, and we slammed into this solid concrete and marble dome, which didn't give way. Our impact speed was like 2 cars on a freeway hitting head on. That was the speed of our impact. And so we slammed into this, and that actually killed all 3 of us. The impact between the monument and our brains, that blunt trauma is the cause of death. And then if that didn't kill us, there was a 70-foot fall directly to the ground, and there was no airplane to be in anymore. So we all hit the ground. And so just bam, 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 we all landed in the same place. We all hit the monument in the same place. God spared my life, I know it. And yet there I was with a paramedic working on me, giving me mouth to mouth and giving me chest pressure. And by golly, I went right back into my body.
You did.
I did. I went back into my body, and then I felt the pain. And now I'm not looking down, I'm looking up. And I wish I could thank this paramedic. I've never been able to find him. I'll probably find him in heaven someday. But he saved my life, and God used him to bring my pulse back. And while my body was put in an ambulance, then I separated again. And strangely, I know this sounds totally wild and crazy, but you're used to all these stories now, but it's still hard for me to describe it. But I separated from my body and I chased the ambulance and my body. I don't know why. I had to stay close. And I was outside following the ambulance, nobody knowing this, following the ambulance through the streets of the Hollywood Burbank area to get to the St. Joseph's Hospital. I followed the gurney when they put me and then I stayed out of my body all the way into the emergency room, and then I'm back in, then I'm back out. And
Really?
it was a strange encounter, I'll say.
So is it because were you going in your body because they got your heart back working and then you flatlined again, so then you came out of your body? Is that what was happening?
It appears to be that that's what was happening. I got to know my doctor really, really well. There was another doctor that helped in emergency, but I got to know my primary doctor extremely well. We spent the rest of his life as close friends. Wonderful man, Dr. Homer Graham, and I got to know his family really well, still do stay contact with them. But yeah, I was apparently clinically dead. And clinically dead is three things, right? There's no brain waves, there's no heart, so there's no blood pumping, and there's no respiratory, there's no breathing. When you have all three of those, then you're clinically dead. And many people will say, if you're clinically dead, all three of those, then nobody recovers from that. And so I'm going to most likely give those who are love to split hairs and like every detail. I'm going to say that I'll bet you that not all three were present. Maybe the heart had stopped, but the brain waves were still going. Whatever. All I know is I went in and out of my body a couple of times. And when I was in the body, I could feel the pain, and I would almost want to die. And when I was out of the body, it was peace and joy and confusion, but not the kind of confusion. That's not a good word. It's the only word I know. Just what is happening? That's the kind of thing. I'm not worried, but what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can tell, but Steph and I are on the edge of our seats over here, Captain Dale. And you can tell, I mean, both of us are like raising our hands like, I got to ask you a follow-up question here. So you have our attention. So when you're following yourself, right? So they're wheeling you on the gurney into the hospital. You're out of your body. You're literally just kind of floating, I guess, along. Are you going through doors? Are you going through walls to kind of follow you into the hospital?
I didn't notice where I was going, the surroundings. I didn't notice. My focus was on my body,
Okay.
as if I was somehow spiritually connected to it. And yet I didn't see any physical connection, but I knew that I had to be next to or near my body. When I was in the emergency room, I did know then that I could see the instruments around, the medical instruments. I could actually feel like I was touching or near the acoustical ceiling. I can still see that ceiling up close in my mind today. So when I was in the hospital and I was stationary, for the first time, I was able to stop and think about where I was. And it was clear I was in the hospital. It was clear this was the doctor. And boy, is that guy, the doctor, man, he's in charge. He's not just a regular doctor. He's like a general of an army. and when you get to know the doctor that I'm talking about, Homer Graham, you realize, wow, yeah, he was Evel Knievel's doctor, if you ever heard of him.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you. I was curious if that was true, because I'm like, okay, I told Steph earlier, that would be a good surgeon to have, right? Like that guy's had a lot of practice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
Peggy Fleming and so many of the Hollywood, because it was right there in Hollywood, and so he was the orthopedic surgeon for the stars, and he had his office lined with movie stars and everybody that he had worked on at one time or the other. And when it was all said and done, he made a picture of me.
oh, and put on his wall.
Yeah, and Evel Knievel was the #1 star, and he put me ahead of Evel.
Oh,
So
Wow.
that's awesome.
Evel and
Wow.
I, we had lots of words about that.
Wait, did you know Evel Knievel?
Only through the doctor. But,
Yeah.
The doctor would say, Evel said, and I would say, well, tell him. Never met him. But you know that he, at the end of his life, he really softened his heart and came back to a great relationship with God. And
Oh, that's good.
we will see him in heaven. I'd like to ask you to pray for the many people who are hearing these last generation podcasts. Pray that their hearts and minds will be open to Jesus as Savior and Lord as Messiah. And if you'd like to see these videos continue, partner with us. Go to Dale Black Ministries at daleblack.org and check out the donation page. And while you're there, check out the benefits of partnership. Time is short. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this information. This is Dale Black reminding you once again that with God, nothing is impossible.